One. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Bill Maley, Brighton Town Supervisor. And this afternoon, we're holding our first of two budget workshops as part of the Town of Brighton preparation for the 2021 town budget. This is part of the process that we use each year to develop a budget in a way that is transparent to the community and goes far beyond the legal requirements in terms of state law for municipalities preparing their budgets. We will have this budget workshop today with the entire town board. We'll have another budget workshop next Wednesday at 4 p.m. The departments that aren't reviewed today will go at that time. I anticipate that we will have a finance committee meeting reviewing both the capital improvement plan and the budget. And since I mentioned the capital improvement plan, each year, as part of the development of a budget, we do a capital improvement plan looking out 3 years. So in this case, that will be 2021, 2022, and 2023. And that enables us to have a longer term perspective. It's consistent with guidance that we receive from the New York State Comptroller. And again, it's part of our effort to be as transparent to the community as we possibly can. I do want to mention, obviously, we're holding this meeting remotely today as we have been holding our town board meetings. We are doing this in compliance with amendments to the open meetings law that Governor Cuomo has made possible through executive order. Without any further delay, I do want to introduce Susan and Allie. Again, as we do for our town board meetings, we have ASL sign language interpretation, and Susan and Allie are our interpreters today. So we will start with undistributed revenues, and I will ask our finance director, Paula Parker, to kick that off. Paula.
Hello, everybody. Can everybody see the screen okay?
Yes.
Okay. Just making a label change here. So let's go through our revenues. We're going to make a comparison between what we budgeted, not estimated, what we budgeted, and now what we estimate for 2021. So everybody's aware that COVID is presenting a unique challenge to us. So I'm going to take you through our revenues one by one. I'm estimating about a $640,000 reduction in revenues. And I want to caution everybody because the distributed sales tax could potentially be higher. We don't know. We're going to go with the 12% that I have here. We're going to take it down from $4,335,000 to $380,000. So that's going to be $535,000. Again, we may have to go deeper. On the top line, if you look at payments in lieu of tax or pilots, you can see a reduction there. That's because we have one pilot aging off. So it'll age off the pilot listing and then it goes on to the tax listing. So it's not a loss in revenue. It's just a shifting from the pilot to the taxable status. Interest on property taxes, we've decreased $10,000. When I look back at the last 5 years, this seems to be reasonable. 2020 is an anomaly. We expect if everything goes back to what is close to normal, we still should see those types of interest on our property taxes. Interest earnings on investments, mostly this is our CDs, our savings accounts. We went from about a 2.25 rate down to a 0.25 rate. So this is going to wreak a lot of havoc with our budget. But again, if we're going to be realistic, interest rates are not going to increase anytime in the near future. So it is prudent that we reduce those to a 0.25%. So that's going to look at a $65,000 hit there.
And Paula, if I can interrupt you,
Sure.
because obviously the 2020 budget showed $75,000, but that was done at a time
Correct.
when, again, we thought interest rates were going to be higher during 2020. We will not, that is one budget line that we will clearly not meet. We will have a shortfall below that $75,000 this year.
When we put the budget together in October of 2019 for 2020, rates were up around 2.25%. Early in the year, they started to decline. So again, the budget's in place, so we go with what we've got at the time. So yes, you're right. These numbers were estimated in October of 19. So yes, we're going to see a shortfall in interest rates for sure.
And of course, the same is true of sales tax.
Correct.
We are clearly going to have a serious shortfall.
Yep.
We don't know how much, but if trending is up and down, but significantly below last year so far.
Yep. And our directors are prepared and getting prepared to make adjustments to their budgets when it comes to that. The one thing, we've had an increase in our credit card program. This is our procurement card payment through M&T Bank. We call it the CPDA card program. So we've got more of our vendors are jumping on this program. They get paid a day earlier, and it's working out well. And we actually reap the benefit of about 1% of everything that we process, and 0.5% of the larger vendors. So we're going to see an increase of $2,500 there. So overall, it's not great news. We're looking at, again, about a $640,000 decrease in revenues, which could actually turn out to be more as more information comes available.
And we also we have what we thought was a rock solid number in our budget for 2021, the $227,000 from the AIM program, or what is now sort of an AIM-like program, because it's actually running through the county for most towns. But there is some question as to the potential impact on AIM if to provide any COVID relief to municipalities like Brighton and to the state of New York. It's possible, although it's indirect, that we would face a shortfall in AIM as well. So we're not only are we looking at potential serious trouble, serious challenges, I guess I'll say, that are apparent in these 2021 numbers. Our current operations in 2020 are also facing ongoing challenges from a number of different COVID-related directions.
And that's a payment we don't see until December 15th. So again, far off. We have no idea as of yet.
Right.
I do know it won't go up. I do know that much.
True.
Okay, so next we have the ambulance. If they are ready to chime in here, I think they're both here, Dennis and Julie Ray.
Hi, good afternoon.
Hi, Julie Ray.
How are you?
Good. Thank you for presenting today.
Absolutely. I know Mr. Mites is on. He was.
Yeah, he's here.
Maybe he ran away.
Yes. In the packet I emailed to everybody, you should have a couple of spreadsheets. You, of course, have the summary sheet here. There should be two budget versus actual sheets. One of them was a simple sheet with just one column. And then the other sheet was Julie Ray provided us with some 18 and 19 actual numbers, some estimated 20 numbers, and then her 21 budget numbers.
Mhm.
Okay. Very good.
Thanks,
Hello,
Dennis.
everybody. I'm back. How are you?
Good.
Good. So let me just start a little bit, and then Julie Ray is going to kind of finish. One of the things that you can see here is that when we talk about the detail part of our budget, you know, we are obviously in the same boat as everybody else, just so everyone understands that our call volume has been affected negatively by COVID. Everyone thinks that ambulances would probably be busier, where actually we have not been busier. And the reason for that is a lot of the doctor's offices, as you know, shut down for the couple of months, and there were nobody coming for appointments in Clinton Crossings and everywhere else. And then obviously less traffic on the road equals less motor vehicle accidents. So those were probably the two biggest things that happened in there. But at the height of it in March and April, we were getting tagged about 20% of our call volume, which is about a Julie Ray, $35,000 a month hit.
Yes.
So we, as I think you know, we were able to get the payroll protection program, which we've kind of used because we didn't ever lay any of our staff off either way. And we used some of that money to bridge us, you know, through this time period. But, you know, our call volume is back now to like maybe 85% or so.
Mhm.
And we're just projecting over the next 6 to 9 months that it'll gradually come up. So, Julie Ray, I don't remember the total number, but out of our 2021 budget, it's probably what, as far as how much we would have had if we had 100%. 100,000, probably 160,000, something like that.
Yes, we've reduced our third-party income for the 21 budget by approximately 3.3%. So it's not quite 69,000.
Okay, yeah, because we're recovering it because it starts in September. So anyway, to make up the differences in that budget, you know, Julie Ray will talk about some of the things we did. But one of the things I just wanted to talk about was, you know, the biggest part of this budget, which is the contract funding. So as you guys know, we keep sending it to you every month. So Paula gets that. I guess, Bill, I think you probably get a copy of it too.
Yes.
But the way it's running right now, you know, we did not request, knowing what was going on with the budget this year, we certainly did not request any increase in that line item. However, the run rate right now is running more like 350 to 360,000 than 310,000. Now we have another 5 months or so to recover, and it does go up and down if you look at it. So hopefully it's not going to go anywhere near that high. But I just have to caution you that, you know, next year, who knows what's going to happen, because, you know, all the insurance companies are raising their deductibles. So this is why the thing keeps building up, you know, to a higher number. It's not because we have more calls. It's the, you know, the co-pays are getting higher. Okay. So I think we'll be okay for this year for 21. We're going to hope so. But just so you understand that that's the big factor. And then the second thing, of course, is the ambulance that we would be getting in May. We did not increase the schedule when you helped us on the last one. So it's exactly when it was supposed to be. And most likely we'll be going back. The sprinters are being built because we're not terribly happy with the transit. It has worked okay as an ambulance, but we'd be pretty hard pressed to do that again. Okay. So, but the funding level that Paula has here, it will fit in fine. It has not increased in value over the 100,000. So we're probably going to be 90 something. So, but we can come and talk about that at finance when the time is, you know, necessary to do that. Okay, Julie Ray, you want to just talk about what else we did in our budget for this year? Just how we manipulated it.
Yeah, sure. So as Dennis had mentioned, you know, like everyone else, our budget has been pretty tight with COVID. So we did do some significant trimmings on any expenses where we could. As previously mentioned, we did reduce our third-party income by about 3.3% for this current budget.
To make some people bigger, and I don't know if I click here to take off side by side, if that's going to make
as I look at some of the
so I
expenses,
wasn't gonna mess it.
they are pretty standard with the way that we anticipate the year to be. One of the biggest expenses that we've had increase is our workers' comp insurance as well as other insurances. As everyone knows, this COVID has created those to go up. And also, like you, Paula, our interest income is going to significantly decrease. Another thing that we have decided to do as a board to try and help with our budget was we rather significantly cut back our capital contribution. And as you know, our capital contribution, our plans for expected expenditures, it's not just a storage space. So we have put those on hold for this fiscal year to try and help our budget as well. And those are really a couple of the highlights. There's nothing else significant other than those few items.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions. I don't know whether anybody else does. My first question relates to plans for capital contribution this year. I believe last year you had anticipated being able to make a 57,000, I think was the number that's in the budget. Stand does cover various equipment and other capital expenditures. I did not see a capital contribution in your proposal for this year. Is that one of the places where you're cutting back in order to be able to meet
yes, absolutely,
the budget challenge of 2021? Okay, so you do not plan on making a capital contribution this year?
That's correct.
Thanks. And my other question was related to the PPP loan. Will you be making any repayments in 2021 or in future years? I don't know all the the details of the principal amount of the loan and everything, but will it be entirely forgiven based on your retaining employment, or will there be a portion that'll be paid back?
We are expecting 100% of that to be forgiven. I actually was ready to file the papers a while ago, but with the SBA and the bank, they said just sit tight. So, but no, we've complied 100%. And quite frankly, used more than 85% of that for payroll, which exceeds the federal government regulations.
Great.
Yeah. And that bill, that's all affected in our 2020. It won't even have anything to do with our 21 budget at all. So.
Wonderful.
So that was very helpful. Yes, it was helpful to get that program, obviously. It was, just so you know, it was what, Julie Ray, 229?
281.
281.
Any other questions? Just for clarity, I don't know how many people are watching us either on our YouTube live stream or on our cable channel 1303. As a workshop, this is an opportunity for board members to ask questions. There will be at future public hearings the opportunity for the public to be engaged. Obviously, we welcome the public watching today, but based on the tight time schedule we're on with a town board meeting tonight, the Q&A will be the board members.
Hi, Bill. This is Robin Wilt.
Hi, Robin.
Hi. I just had a quick question about the training classes. I see that there are a number of line items zeroed out, and I just wanted to see if that is because training is not being offered, or are those just being cut back with regard to, was that a budgetary constraint that we're operating under? And I just wanted to make sure that is not going to impact service.
Yeah, I can answer that one, Robin. Hi. That training expenses that are cut back are for an internal training, for training for our captains and our chiefs and assistant chiefs and things like that. Our actual classes we offer at Brookside are going to continue, and the expenditures that go along with that, you'll see in line 59017, which is training supplies and services. But the professional service, the RHI, the AHA training, those are all for our staff. That's not
Okay.
the external training.
Thank you for that clarification, Julie.
No problem. You're welcome.
Any other questions? Thank you both, Dennis and Julie Ray. We appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Sure.
And we'll now go to Town Assessor Sue Wentworth.
Okay, guys, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Good afternoon. I
Hi, Sue.
do not have video at my desktop computer, but hopefully you can hear me.
Loud and clear.
Okay. So for the third year in a row, the town of Brighton is at 100% full market value for our equalization rate. The residential sales have dropped about 17% from last year. We had 352 residential sales during the calendar year. And of those, 147 of them sold within 5 days. So what we're seeing due to the low inventory is an escalation in sales prices over the list price. There's been bidding wars, so I am anticipating that our equalization rate will probably drop a little bit next year, but we'll wait and see what the numbers show. We had 28 informal reviews last fall. We only had 113 grievance applications this year. We still have 6 active Article 7 cases that we carried over, and we have 6 new cases for the 2020 roll. So COVID should not be a factor in these cases because it's based on July 1st, 2019 valuation date. And the last 2 years, we've spent just over $40,000 in attorney's fees, but most of that is due to the update and one large case that was finally settled with all the refunds, and that was the condominium case.
Right.
So that is completely done. So I'm anticipating that we should be able to spend about $30,000 with the new cases this year and next year. So I did make reductions on my attorney fees and appraisal fees. So my 400s were reduced about 28%.
Great.
Any questions?
I just want to walk everybody through the appropriations for just a quick second. You're going to notice that personal services has stayed flat as with the directive from the supervisor. Sue addressed the 18,335 reduction, which is outlined below here. She had a few of her 400 accounts that contributed to the attorney fee and appraisal fee reductions. The employee benefits, the increase of $2,220 is going to relate solely to medical and dental premiums. We're estimating about a 7% increase in that, although we do not have any concrete numbers as of yet. We also don't have any numbers for New York State retirement as of yet, so we've kept that number flat. Sue was also requested in this 980 account, $30,000 to be contributed to the capital reserve for her next evaluation project down the road.
And that's something you'll recall that last year we took out of the 2020 budget. But at some point we are going to have to be funding the next reval, whether we start now or if we start later, it's just going to be a bigger hit somewhere down the road.
And one more thing to note is that due to COVID, we're not doing any out of town travel for training. And the assessment boards have been wonderful with providing WebEx training. So it's at a significantly reduced cost. So a class now is between $100 and $200 to get our continuing ed credits, which are required every year. So that's a big chunk of the 400s there too.
Sue, if I may, this is Chris Warner. How much do we have in reserve towards that reval?
None.
There's a-
Would be a Paula question.
We have a little bit. I think we have about 16,000 in the reserve.
Yeah.
Sounds like none. Okay.
Yeah, it's close.
What was the total cost of our reval here this last time?
It was around 180,000, but we did it in a unique way where we didn't hire very much outside help. We did it in-house.
But even with that, we spent 180.
Correct.
Right. Yeah, we
And I believe in the 2008, it was close to 250,000.
Yeah.
That was the last reval.
Which in current dollars would be somewhere north of 300.
Correct.
That you'll recall, Sue and Elaine worked together as part of Sue's transition into this position. She was able to use her IT expertise and her real estate appraisal expertise to dramatically reduce the amount of outside consulting services we needed to pay for. They did a great job in putting together that proposal.
Is there any period that we're required to do reval? Is it simply when the equalization rate drops?
We have our own internal policy. We look at the coefficient of dispersion, meaning how widely, I'm not a mathematician, but how widely the prices diverge from the mean. So that's one part of it, as well as the equalization ratio. And we have benchmarks for both of those. And what we have traditionally done is when we fall outside those benchmarks, that's our trigger that it's time for a townwide reval. Obviously, there are other options. You can do revals, a more limited reval of certain types of properties or certain portions of the town. But we have not done that in recent years. When we've done the reval, it's been townwide.
So there's no.
I can email those documents to the board, that the guidelines that we have.
Sorry, Chris, was there another question?
No, so there's no set frequency. It's just a question of the divergence and the equalization ratio.
Right.
So we don't know when the next reval might be, other than Sue suggested that we might see a greater divergence.
Right. Any other questions? Hearing none, we will move to parks. Matt Beeman, thank you, Sue.
Thank you.
Okay. Is that good? Am I on?
You're on.
Hey.
Okay. Hey. Okay. Thanks, Paula.
Yep. Do you want me to run through first, or do you want to, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to do it real quick, then I can add on why things might be lower or higher. Or...
There's just a couple areas I want to touch on. The personal services, we're up 25,000 there, or 27,000 there, because with the Teamsters contract negotiations, the fellows went from 35 hours a week to 37 and a half hours a week. We did not have that in the 2020 budget. So that's the impact that you're seeing here at 7%. And again, the interest on our debt service payments has gone down, but our principal went up based on what we've borrowed for vehicles recently in the parks. And revenues, we looked at holding flat, and I can let Matt address that with you as well. And the employee benefit portion is only going up, I say only, about $2,300 or 1.8%. And again, we've included our health insurance is the lion's share of that.
Yep. And in addition, looking at the appropriations up top, our 400s, we were able to get under that recommended 5% with that. And I can elaborate on that in a moment. Really, other than that, it looks like our utilities, commercial insurance and stuff like that is kind of out of our hands as far as how that fluctuates. But we were able to get the 400s under the 5. And the big reasoning behind that is we were able to take some of the landscaping services away. We had 2 applications set for fertilization of the athletic fields. And what we did is we cut that down to 1. So there is a little impact on what kind of service that is affecting, but we'll look at going forward with 1 application of fertilization that was able to really help us get under that 5% cut under that 400s, contractual expenses. Other than that, we did cut a little bit out of maintenance supplies, here or there, just anything that we could do to contribute to getting under that 5%. If we look at the estimated revenues, I did discuss in great length with Paula the reasoning behind keeping things somewhat flat. What we can do now is we actually have so many years built up where we can do a 5-year average on not only the lodges and pavilion rentals, but also the athletic fields. So we did those averages, and I really feel that looking forward to 2021, obviously 2020 this year is severely impacted because of the COVID-19 issues. But I feel pretty strongly with those revenue projections. As soon as we've opened up the lodges on July 12th, we are getting an influx of folks that do want to rent the facilities. So we've seen a spike in that. So my hope is that will continue to get back to normal. The athletic fields, we're basing everything off a 5-year average, but they were pretty conservative to begin with. And I feel pretty good about the athletic field numbers only because the majority of the funding for that comes from outside groups. And really the COVID-19 hit the athletic groups that are town sponsored. So, groups like Brighton Little League, Brighton Youth Soccer, Brighton Girls Lacrosse, all those groups meet that 80% residency requirement. So they're not required to pay a field rental fee. So this is based on all of our outside groups, which right now they're pretty much back to full swing. There are some regulations through the state that they have to follow, but they're able to continue their programming, which means they're able to continue to want and need fields. So, I feel pretty strong that those numbers we'll be able to hit those numbers as far as the field revenues and the lodge revenues for 2021.
Matt, did you cut the fertilizing down to 1 application this year already?
I did. We did have I anticipated a bump when the new mowing contract was renewed, Bill. And when we got the new numbers, I had enough budgeted to do up to 2, but we're still only doing 1. So we did have a little bit of money left over there, and that's what we were able to cut.
Good.
Let me see here. Looking, obviously, the 200s have a pretty big bump in there because of the park CIP request, the resurfacing of the tennis courts and basketball courts at Buckland Park, our tractor replacement. That's the tractor we use over at Meridian Center Park. The miscellaneous equipment, the 14,500, that is basically all of our playground equipment, our replacement equipment that we have to buy. It's our tables and chairs. It's our picnic tables for the parks. It's also like grills, our rec equipment, things like that. So that's basically what comes out of that number. And, that hasn't changed in the last few years. In addition, it looks like we're projected to get a little bit of a break on the gasoline and fuel. I know that's put together based on, the price of fuel as well as our projected, average use. And right now, it looks like the numbers are pointing to us getting a little bit of a help with getting that, lowered. So we're in good shape fuel-wise. Obviously, we'll take a closer look at that before anything is finalized. But at this point, it looks like fuel costs will be down.
And when we're estimating fuel costs for 21, we are not estimating them based on the usage for the current year, considering this year's a blip. because of COVID and the fact that there was a period of time when we weren't really doing everything that we would normally do. So we're going to put the usage aside for 2020 and base the usage on prior years to 2020 when things were more normal.
And we'll also have to have that conversation next year when we're projecting revenues, because next year, if we do the 5-year averages, it'll include 2020. So we'd have to decide whether to just scrap 2020 altogether or, include it, and it'll really affect the revenue projections if we do that.
Yeah. Realistically, 2020 is such an outlier that it probably doesn't make sense in including it in our projections, obviously, unless things, don't improve as we all hope they will for next year. But we'll, it's a recurring theme. So much of what we're looking at is very fluid, very much in flux.
Right.
Anybody have any additional questions for Matt?
Matt, this is Robin. I had one question. You did keep those revenue numbers for fields flat, except for in the case of Meridian Center. Is there a reason why that particular field rental went down a third?
Actually, the field revenues were done on a 5-year average, so that's just the way it worked out. So okay. It was 2015 to 19. We probably had one down year at Meridian Center Park, and that affected it. But usually we do fairly well on the field revenues. If you look at the 2019 actuals, we brought in about $10,700 for Meridian Center Park. So you can see there's a little bit of a cushion there, based on the volume of use that we get.
Okay, great. These are all formulaic then. All right, thank you.
And Matt, I did put the celebrations budget in, but I did keep everything flat, and you might need to look at reviewing that. I don't know if there's room for any reductions or not. Everything looked pretty cut and dry.
Yeah, it really is. And that'll have to be another discussion that we have, with Bill and everyone else, just going forward. Who knows what group sizes will look like next summer, and hopefully we're on to some normal operation, but it's just too hard to tell right now. So, and obviously that's for the July 4th celebration. So we'll have to put our heads together, and as we get more information on what we can do safely, what we can't do, and we'll go from there.
Any other questions? Thank you, Matt. Appreciate all your work, especially during the pandemic. As parks have been getting a lot of use, your folks have had to continue working very hard, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, now we will go to a series that Mike Guyon will be involved in. Depending on the presentation, some of his team will join him. We'll start with Public Works, Fire Marshal, Building and Planning.
Good afternoon, everybody. Also here with me to help out with these accounts, Everett Garcia, who put together the 1490 account, and Ramsey Boehner. So they'll be able to help me with any questions we have. We'll start with the 1490 account, Paula. Okay with that?
Sure. And overall, if everyone wants to just look at the recap sheet I've got up, what we're looking at for all of those departments together is about a $200,000 increase, 11% in the appropriations, as well as sadly a reduction in the estimated revenue. So the impact of that is going to be like a 15% increase across all those departments. And yep, Mike, we can start with your 1490.
So 1490s, that's our Department of Public Works. We tried to maintain everything relatively level with the exception of some projects we felt that were necessary. The first project, I think that's a large dollar project, would be document scanning services. We've been requesting this over the years. It's particularly, it'd be particularly helpful at this point with all the FOIL requests we've been having. So we've estimated, we put a price in there about $33,700 there. a year to have someone come in and scan some of the documents to put into our Laserfish system, which would allow us to easily search out for foils and things of that nature. What we have scanned in there has been extremely helpful. It's a very efficient system. We also have 3 electric charging stations that we've put in there. We were hoping to get some grant money for that. There is some grant money available, but it wasn't sufficient to pay for all the improvements. We were anticipating putting those at the parks. And that's pretty much, those are the 2 large expenditures, I would say, in the 1490. Other than that, we tried to maintain things pretty well close. Do you want me to continue with the other, or do you want to tackle one account at a time?
No, everybody on your sheet, you've got one of the things in the personal services line being, that line being impacted probably more than any other line is a promotion that's impending on it's on our agenda tonight at the board meeting. And then Mike's gone through and looked at some maintenance and repair. I've outlined those increases and decreases for you. So we can go to Fire Marshal now, Mike.
And the Fire Marshal is pretty straightforward. There's no surprises there. We've actually had quite a reduction in the total expenses there. Chris does a great job managing the cost of that department. So there's not a whole lot to talk about with the Fire Marshal's department. I don't know if you want to add anything, Paul, or not.
No, again, the 800s, it's kind of a wash. I think, Chris, yeah, we stayed flat. We did have to, felt it was appropriate to reduce the fire alarm permit fees based on what we've been trending the last 5 years. And the other increase was the medical and dental premiums.
So then the last account would be the 80/20, which is building and planning. Some of the larger expenses, we are looking to upgrade our municity system, which is our IT system where we track permits, complaints, things of that nature. Currently, that is all housed in a server at Town Hall. We'd like to go to a web-based system. Again, that's would have been very helpful during the COVID period because people could have gotten onto the system without having to have a VPN. Would have been would have increased our efficiencies greatly. So that's, we were looking to change out the program. We also have in there money for a West Corridor study over in, West Henrietta Road Corridor study. That would be to complete the study. That is a study that's been recommended in the comprehensive plan. And I think that there's been one decrease in there where it was, we have funding scheduled this year for the multiversity plan. And we're moving ahead with that. I know Ramsey's working with the folks to get the grant formulated and to get that project moving also.
Mike, on the municity, we've obviously talked about our various software packages and some concern with whether our different software systems are able to effectively communicate. Does it make sense to do a municity upgrade at this time? Is that the system that's likely to be the survivor, if you will, or where are we at in terms of some potential changes to get everything talking to each other more effectively?
Bill, I agree. When we put all this together, we had Pub Works, we had Municity, and they don't talk together and they don't talk to the finance software. I think it all starts honestly with some of the finance software, and I don't think we're real close to knowing whether they all talk together or not. The nice thing about Municity, Bill, is we know it, we're used to it. Training would be minimal. There certainly would be some training, but it would be minimal because we understand the program. To answer your question, it would still be a singular program. It would not be interfaced with any of the other programs. I would love to do that. I think it's going to be a lot more expensive because we're going to purchase a brand new piece of software.
Because none of our existing software is broad enough, if you will, to assume the whole operation.
That's correct, Bill. That is correct. I mean, I don't know if that software even exists out there. I know we looked at it at one point. It was, what we found was very, very, very expensive. So I would love to do it because it makes sense to do that, but I just don't know if it's worth the expense.
I mean, obviously, we run a lot of things administratively through the overall organization. You've got, as you mentioned, not only Municity, but PubWorks. So we potentially have at least 3 and, certainly some more depending on future decisions vis-a-vis payroll and the like. That's never a good situation to be in, but
Plus Laserfish.
Plus Laserfish,
yeah,
right?
plus
Thanks,
Laserfish.
Dan. So I throw that out there. Can you scroll down
Of course, yes.
a little farther there? Obviously the West Henrietta Road project is on there, and I understand that that's legacy from the complex. Where that goes.
Understand, Bill, that I think you were copied in on that. I think we have that correspondence from New York State DOT too tonight, that they're moving ahead with their corridor study. I don't know when they're going to finish that. I suspect they got a full year to go on that also.
Right. Any other questions that people have? Understanding we have much more, Mike, in the facility, highway, sidewalk, and sewer districts. Any more questions on this piece of it?
Yes, this is Christine Corrado. A very quick question for Mike about the cost of the corridor study versus something like the multiversity concept plan. I know that the projection, what we see here includes just the local share of the multiversity concept plan. And forgive me if you spoke to this already, but do we intend to seek grants to support the West Henrietta Road corridor study, and that would ultimately bring down this total projected cost?
Christine, if we can find some grants, that would be great. And we could certainly look for them. Honestly, what I'd like to do is at some point get the corridor study done and use the corridor study to seek out grants. I don't know of any grants off the top of my head for that, but just like with the multiversity and the climate action plan, we did receive grants for both of those. Certainly, if there's opportunities out there, we would look for them.
Okay, and then this is just a help me with my ignorance here. $96,000 for a corridor study. Can you speak briefly to what that encompasses? Briefly, I understand.
I can try. When we put that number together, I put together an outline, and we tagged man hours and time to all those tasks. And certainly it's going to require looking at the uses within the corridor, looking at setbacks within the corridor, looking at parking, access management. So those types of issues, what we're thinking about. Ramsey, you want to chime in on that? I'd be more than glad.
I think you're right, Mike. We looked at what our previous efforts were in the past to try to project that cost based on what we've done in the past and what studies have cost in the past. And for proposal, though, what the real cost will be.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That's very helpful.
Any other questions? Okay, then facility operations.
Before we go there, if we can just quickly take a look, Mike, at the townwide street lighting. There was a CIP request in that as well. I'm sorry, guys. We kind of jumped around a little bit. So that budget is going up almost entirely because of that CIP request.
Let me speak to that CIP request. We had that in last year. Stevie Zimmer, our sewer inspector, those folks, his department's in charge of doing stakeout. Stevie's very concerned that we're not doing a very good job of staking out some of the electrical services there. I think we do a pretty good job, but we don't have good records of the wiring that's in the ground. The intent of this capital improvement project is to better locate and know where that stuff is in the ground. So when we get a dig request, we can better locate it. And these are for the town-owned lights.
And then on the, let's just quickly look at the sidewalk. These are townwide sidewalks. The increase there is about 7,000, and that's solely the price increase on the materials necessary to do the sidewalk approval program. So that's what that 7,300 is below. With some,
which does not comport with past history.
Hey, Bill, I
Yep.
think we have I looked at something real quick. We had 1,800 square feet in there for this one. And I think in past years we had 1,300 square feet. So I think
I think that's what's really going on there. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, Paul. I didn't want to chime in, but I'll tell you, Bill, we get so many requests for sidewalks. It's,
I understand.
Okay.
I understand.
there was no comment in your budget request.
We're we have worked very hard to continue to spend money on our infrastructure, and sidewalks are obviously an important part of our infrastructure. And I think it's important to note, and you and I've talked about this recently, one of the reasons it's so important is goes back to our commitment to inclusion. And defective sidewalks can become a real hazard for, or an absolute barrier in some cases for members of our disabled community. So, but at the same time, our ability to do all the work that we would like to do is really gravely impaired by the revenue impact of COVID this year.
And our budget for the sidewalk snow removal stayed essentially flat. So good job there. And then the streetscape tree maintenance program has gone down, and the biggest impact for that is the emerald ash borer treatment that we did in the current year for 2020 that's scheduled. We won't have that for next year. So you can see that even though there's some bucket truck rental increases and emergency tree removal increases, overall, we've seen a decrease in that budget.
Mike, or I don't know if it's Ramsey or Everett, who knows, what is the minimum, it's a per capita formula, the minimum that we have to do in order to maintain our Tree City USA status?
It's $2 per capita, I believe, Bill.
That's what I thought. So that would wind up being probably just shy of 74,000.
Correct. But, we do a lot of other things out there for trees too, Bill. We could certainly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is, I'm sorry, Christine Corrado. I've got a question about the landscape services for the Monroe Avenue GIGP. Is that maintenance only, or is that extension of the rain garden plantings?
That right now, Christine, is maintenance, primarily maintenance, but we also have some money in there because we've had some issues with the sidewalks for sidewalk replacement too. Some of that course, if you've walked it, you've seen some of and generally it's happening. I walked it the other day, and you look at it, Tim and I both walked it. There's one place near CVS, which is just deteriorated terribly, and I believe that is just poor concrete. We're going to look at trying to repair that this year. But the other spots are generally where cars are traveling back and forth across the pavement, and it looks like it's salt damage. So we're going to replace that with conventional concrete, which will resolve the problem anyway. But
all right,
we
and
have
that
money in there.
That the replacement of those sidewalks is reflected here and not in the other sidewalk budget.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
And Mike, as you know, I think less this year because our contractor has been out there on a more regular basis. But we have struggled with the maintenance of the Monroe Avenue GIGP landscape improvements. And in particular, we continue to face the fact that some of them grow too well. And some of those grasses that grow so high that they become a visual barrier, and we've heard about it, and you know, understandably so from some of our residents. And I know that's a particular area where you've had our contractor going back and trying to.
Yep, we've been out
down.
there. You know, honestly, Dan flagged that up early on, so we had the contractor go out and trim them back. And you're right, Bill, they just grow very fast. But from a standpoint of weeds, last year weeds were problematic. This year we have seemed to be able to manage the weeds much better. But
much better.
But the growth it's tough, Bill.
Yeah.
Mike, what's the impact of the cutback in the emerald ash borer treatment? Are this just a regular sequence? We don't need to do it this year, or are we abandoning that?
That's correct, Chris. It's once every 3 years, I believe, is the treatment schedule for that.
Yep.
Will we expect to see that then in 2022?
2020, let's see, it's 2023.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, we are still running a few minutes behind, but not too badly. So we'll go to facility operations.
That's mine too. Mike Guyon, Commissioner of Public Works. Also with me is Gary Donofrio, who will chime in. Gary and I put the schedule together, primarily Gary. So if there's any questions, Gary will probably be answering the questions. We have a bunch of capital improvement plans or capital improvement projects in the budget. That's where you're seeing the bulk of the increase in costs. One, we have electric doors we're looking at putting in, a new dehumidifier unit in the public safety wing. We had done the improvements a couple years ago. They used Gary, what's the name of that wheel? Desiccant wheel? Something to that effect that was intended to, what's that, Gary?
Yeah, desiccant wheel.
Yeah, and that was intended to address the humidity in the courtrooms, and it just hasn't worked out as well as we'd hoped. So we'd like to get something in there to address that humidity. It's better, but it's not, we still receive a lot of complaints. We talked about installing an entrance sign at Town Hall. One thing I can't remember if the stairs were a PESH requirement, Gary.
Actually, our insurance company.
Insurance
company. I think that was Nymer.
Nymer. I'm sorry. I knew it was one of the two. So Nymer had requested we do some work on our steps, and that's because of the type of steps we have. They're beautiful, but they're going to be tricky to repair. So there's a significant cost there. Replace the carpets. The front facade of the building, you'll notice that it is deteriorating a bit. You can run your finger across it, and you can scrape a good portion of that off. So we'd like to take a look at that. And then the big cost is the library roof, which I think it was 2 planning board meetings ago, we've got authorization to go ahead and start the design services for that. We've got very good bids for the design services. We'll know a price better once we get into it. Hopefully it'll be less. I think that price is $683,000, our estimated price. But it's a big job too. It's a considerable job. And those are our largest, I would say, our largest costs in 1620.
Some of those, obviously, for example, particularly the entrance sign, is something that we've, again, hoped over the years we could get a grant or a third-party group provide funding. Much as I'd love a new sign, I think that's the only way that project is going to happen. The library roof, as you said, is in a whole different category. We will bond it. That's a project that's moving forward.
Gary, you have anything else you want to add?
Nope. I think that pretty much covers it. We tried to cut everything out of our 400s that we could possibly. A lot of the stuff is required inspections and such. So
Yeah.
Tried to make the cuts where I could.
Yeah. Any questions that anybody has relating to facilities?
And we had some decrease in personal services, and that was because of a staff change late in 2019. It's when Wanda retired and Pete came on board. So that's being reflected there. So we're not cutting anybody. We're not doing anything like that. So that's there. And then that also did impact employee benefits.
Okay, if there's nothing more, then Mike, put on your highway hat.
So let's get to highway. See, Paul, you want to pull it up?
I'm pulling it up as we
Okay.
speak. Takes a second. It's a big one.
Yeah, I know.
I'll just do the quick, here's our recap sheet. Everything in highway went up about 12%, the appropriations did. And our revenues, of course, went down 10%. So a result of that is we're looking at a net department cost increasing almost $1 million. And that's not such good news. And so on the second page in our department summary, you can see where those are occurring. We've got 445,000, about half of that million is actually in our equipment and capital requests. And then the other majority of that is in the salaries, and with the settling of the CSEA contract and moving things around. We're moving things from the highway piece in the A fund and then obviously into the D fund. So we look at those two factions together. So that's where we're seeing those. And so then, Mike, I think if you want to go ahead, we're good.
So yeah, I'm with me also is Tim Anderson. So Tim can answer any questions. Tim put the schedule together along with Amy Banker. So a lot of the stuff we used was basically the 5-year trends, 5-year projections for a lot of the 400s and things of that nature. I think the capital, where's the capital improvement plan there, Paula?
Or let's slip on down. There we are.
Okay, so obviously the big expenses are vehicles. And I think in the one thing I think we skipped over real quick was in the printing or in the sign department there, we are looking for a new plotter. It's not a huge expense, but there is an expense to that. That was an expense we hadn't incurred last year. So that's an addition. That's a increase in the budget. But the big expense obviously is our vehicles. We're looking to replace truck 61 for about $265,500, obviously. Replace truck 79. Purchase a tow behind compressor. There's some other trucks in there. I know I see some of the trucks have been deferred. I know truck number 3, which I believe is Tim's truck, has been deferred now for a number of years. It's running, but it's barely running. It's doing well. The one truck I did want to talk about was the Packer, and Tim, you might have to help me with this. I know the Packer is in dire need of repair right now. So Tim, you want to get into that a little bit?
Yeah, our current Packer truck, number 69, is in for some repairs. Not as bad as anticipated to be. It was engine repaired, there's a bad camshaft in it, has to be replaced, and then the subframe or some of the framing, the floor pans and the cab are rotted out, but apparently to get floor pans to replace that. So it's not as bad as I anticipated it to be. You know, it's going to be like a $13,000 bill to fix all that stuff. It's not quite as bad as I thought it was going to be.
Okay.
But that is my main Packer right now. Then we use this other one, 68, as a backup. And that one's in the box. Is the dump body on it's getting pretty rough. It's starting to run out pretty bad. There's not much left to it. You know, we use it sparingly when we need it, when the other one's down. But this said that that's the reason to try and replace that, to put the other truck in reserve as a backup truck instead of the main truck, 69.
So I'm not sure if we want to trade trucks if possible, or how we want to maybe take a look at that in the future. You know, the
and obviously those are things that we're scheduled to meet with our budget review task force. I think, are we locked in on Friday morning at this point, Paula? So
Yep.
We'll be, I know, discussing all of those.
It's, we try to keep the budget, we try to maintain the budget as best we can. I know you hear, Bill, we hear, we get a lot of concerns regarding the conditions of our roads, conditions of our gutters. So we're trying to keep up with some of the infrastructure improvements. We do a good job, I think, but we're an inner ring city or an inner ring town, and we're older, and so is our infrastructure. There's just a lot of work to be done out there.
Yeah, it is. And as we all know, and I don't want to beat a dead horse, but our one chunk of our tax revenue that reflects a project that's been the subject of years of frivolous litigation, it should have been built. Monroe Avenue would be safer today, and we would be generating, as would the school district, significant increased tax revenues. That wouldn't solve all of these problems, but it goes in with the older infrastructure. Right now, that site is an eyesore. It is generating some tax revenue, but it's valued as vacant land. So, yeah, we've got a lot of CIP decisions to make. As you well know, we're not going to make all of these. Some of them, there are some, again, that's supported third party, like the CHIPS program. And we have to hope that CHIPS is maintained going forward.
Yeah, one thing that the highway did add this year is a contribution to their equipment reserve here of $30,000. That's something new that we haven't really funded before. And I think
recently, anyway. Yeah.
Not recently. And then we're looking to, I think one of our big projects now that we've got going on for review is the fuel depot. So that obviously, depending on how that all shakes out with that, we definitely might be doing something on the fuel depot, and I'm sure we would bond something like that. So
let's talk about the fuel depot real quick, because we did the study that we had. Remember, we got Barton LaJudas on to do the study.
Yeah.
The results came back that we believe it's going to be significantly less than what's on in here.
Okay.
That's
Tim,
what we
I don't
were
know.
hoping. Good.
Yeah. Well, they found a sort of, I'm glad we did the study instead of just jumping into it, for sure. The study really came back with some sort of with an alternative type of design. We're working with also the DEC to make sure that Tim's been working very closely with the DEC, make sure that this is all within their guidelines and there's not going to be any issues with it. Tim, I don't know if you want to talk to the price on that. I know it's significantly less than what we
it's quite a bit.
thought.
Well, it's estimated it's quite a bit lower. What I put in there was the worst case scenario if the stuff had to be all dug up and replaced, because that involved all civil engineering stuff besides mechanical. Whereas this is the alternative repair method won't be digging up anything like that. Be working with retrofitting within the different structures to fix what has to be fixed. That would eliminate any type of dig up, anything like that. So.
And I want to say, Tim, I know this is not the right thing to do, but I want to estimate the cost. It was under 50,000.
Yeah. Yes.
I would have been happy with half.
Okay.
But good. 50 is really good.
Yeah. So it's substantial. So
Excellent.
we're real happy with the way that turned out.
Good.
Good. Good.
There's a lot here, guys. The highway budget, there's a lot of information in there. We can answer any questions. There's
obviously, in general, with just one or two exceptions, we don't bond our traditional ongoing road resurfacing programming. We did make the exception for Havens and
Duffield.
So those are not, that road resurfacing is not something we would look to borrow towards the other equipment items we do. We have in the past few years done a pretty good job of netting out our principal repayments with our new indebtedness. Depending on where we go on some of these projects, particularly a potential facilities project that we really haven't talked about, that could change.
And if we look at the recap sheet under each department, I've tried to call out where our major differences are. So as Mike said, in the sign shop, it's the equipment, the cutting plotter and air compressor. So under each of these, we can see.
Hey, Paula, I can walk through each one of those if you just leave that sheet up there.
Okay, well, I can go to each individual sheet, Mike, just let me know.
That'll probably work better, to tell you the truth. So for the, we'll walk down. So 3310, Paula just talked about the equipment, the cutting plotter. I think that's from 2008, Tim, is that correct? It's old?
Yeah, that's correct. Actually, we had these two items in for this year's tentative budget, but it was deferred into 2021. So we put them back in for 2021. But yeah, the plotter and stuff, that's quite old, 2008, yes, that's correct.
So then 5010, there's no changes there, but in the 5132, the mobile columns for the truck lift, we purchased a truck lift a couple of years ago. And these mobile columns would just make it more efficient to put smaller trucks in. I think it's for the smaller trucks, Tim, so we don't have to keep jimmying things around.
Not necessarily small. It's for what it is. It's for the 10-wheeler trucks. The trucks that got 3 axles on them, basically. We have currently 4 lifts, which basically lift 4 two-wheel axle trucks. It's got 4 spots to lift. Another set of 2. They'll also do 10-wheeler trucks too.
So we have 1 lift there, but this lift is ideal for doing the work. It's I don't know if anybody has not been over to the highway department to look at it. It's a nice system. It's safe. It's nice. Works well. The fence replacement around the perimeter of the operations center there, it's in bad shape. The operations center is the fence has holes in it. It's torn. It really does need some repair and replacement. The fuel island we talked about, the repair of the salt storage shed, the shed just needs to be painted. We put a new roof on it a couple of years ago. Just needs some repair work on the outside there. And I think
a little repair work on the inside that holds the timbers in place.
Yep.
And
I think the Spectrum Internet, that is from Jeremy, I believe. So we welcome that improvement. Right now, the internet connection between Town Hall and the Operations Center is pretty slow to run, particularly if you're running software that's IT intensive, such as your GIS or your AutoCAD. Moving down, I see parks. There's nothing there within accounts 7110, 8160. That's when we're looking to put a leaf blower and attachment onto our tractors. We tried that out a couple of years ago. We actually retrofitted one of the tractors with a blower. It worked really well, but we didn't have much control over it because it was just something we retrofitted. So we'd like to purchase that unit to help to increase our efficiency of our leaf pickup and our debris pickup, mostly our leaf pickup. Anything you want to add to that, Tim?
No, that's true. It actually basically an attachment that goes on with the Kubota tractors, and it does a nice job. But it gets everything moved around leaf-wise, a lot quicker than guys walking up down the street with a backpack blowers on their backs all day long too. So it was definitely a big help.
Yeah, Cornelius Herring, one of our crew, suggested looking into this. We looked into it a couple of years ago. It is a good idea. It seems to work pretty well. I think the road resurfacing, we talked about Blossom. The gutters have decreased $25,000. That's just a fact that the road has less gutters than the one we did this year. Tow behind cement mixers. We're looking at a jumping jack. That's just standard equipment. Tim, you want to talk to the bridges for French Road?
Yeah, the bridge is in need of repair. Some of the curbing fascia, the concrete is breaking away. You start seeing the rebar and stuff like that. I just put some money into next year to get a consultant on board to evaluate it, to see actually what actually it needs and get a better estimate as to what it might cost to do that type of work. But it's showing its sign and needs some repair eventually here in the future.
Is that a project that the Bridge New York program might support?
I was thinking about that. It might be, I guess it depends how extensive it is, you know, what's entailed.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what their criteria is to meet, to be part of that.
Worth looking into.
Yeah, it is, because this, you know, that was looking at it, you know, a tough project to find.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Funding for. But if a large part of it can, you know, if it really is dire, and if there is a third-party funding source, that would be very, very helpful, obviously.
Okay. And then I think the last sort of expense on there would be, we had the GPS equipment or GPS device back into the CIP this year, but we greatly reduced the number of trucks we're going to put the devices on. Again, we believe that'll help us with our efficiencies, track trucks, limit some of our liabilities, things of that nature.
Yeah.
And I think that's about it, Bill. And Tim, you have anything else to add? We talked about the trucks and everything.
Yeah.
And we'll obviously be talking a lot more about those in the CIP process.
Right.
Thank you. Sidewalk District.
Again, that's one of those, Paul, I'll wait for you to pull it up, but the Sidewalk District, we could put $1 million in there, Bill, and I don't think we'd be able to get to all the sidewalks we need to get to. We'll make headway on it. So we've just trying to estimate how much we can do next year and try to keep up with it. Kyle has a list. Kyle Sears from our office maintains a list of improvements and slabs of sidewalks that need to be taken care of, and we're just trying to keep up with the sidewalks. Tim, you want to add anything to that? I don't.
No, that's true. And it's like, yeah, it's always what happens usually. You go out and take care of the people or the call-ins that service requests to take care of those. Then once you get out there, you get inundated by other people in the neighborhood asking why they're not fixing the rest of the sidewalks in that neighborhood. So it's a catch-22. You fix some, but they get a lot more requests to fix some other ones, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. What was the bid price this year per square foot?
Oh, what was it, Bill? Per square foot, I had it written down here. Hold on a second. I thought you might ask that.
You know me too well.
I do, but I gotta find it now. I want to say it was $854 or something like that, Bill, but that's just replacing the sidewalk. That doesn't include some incidentals, things like that. Yeah, right. No, it was, I'm sorry, it was $1358. It seems high.
Seems very high. I like the 8 better.
Yeah, I thought you would. Let me see if I can pull up the contract real quick, because I did have it up at one point. All right. I got it here, Bill. Hold on a sec. So, yeah, replace concrete 5-inch thick, $8.24 for 2020.
But then you have the various other, you know, all the, you wind up with a blended rate effectively.
Correct.
Which is normally a little bit higher, but that estimate seems hopefully a little high.
Yes.
That would be, well, actually, if you look at the trends and stuff like that, it is closer to $13 a square foot based on what the estimated quantity was, and then there, we had a 3% increase with the contract this year. But what we find as we go along, as the work gets progressed, is it tends to be a little bit lower, closer to the $10 number that we got there on the screen there.
Just because of the blend of work.
Yes.
Because we got asphalt replacement, we've got taking the rubble away, we got driveways, things of that, Bill.
Right. Okay. Thank you for the fund balance analysis there. That's helpful to see. And that's just the district. Obviously, we have the townwide sidewalks separately. Any questions on the sidewalk districts? Sanitary sewer districts. And we've caught back up, by the way, on time. So thank you, Mike.
Well, as I said, there's a lot to look at. I think
there's an awful lot. Yeah.
So I'm sure they'll. About any questions you might have. So sanitary sewer, I have.
Be careful what you wish for.
I'd rather talk about it than get surprised by it, Bill. You know. So Stevie Zimmer's on the line here too somewhere, I think. Yeah, I see Stevie's name down there. So he's Stevie actually put this budget together. Stevie and Amy, Stevie tried to keep the budget relatively flat. You're going to find that some of the expenses on the in Stevie's budget are capital improvement programs or plans that are a third of the cost of the estimated, because right now the sewer department shares in a third of those costs. So that is I would say the largest majority of the cost increase in his budget, Stevie's budget. Steve, you want to talk about that at all?
Cover it. Go ahead.
Is there any? I mean, that seemed to me to be the biggest increases in the budget were the capital, the facilities increases, where we're paying a third of the facilities.
That's correct. Yeah.
And other than that, we're just, we had some issues with the sewers last year, I think it was, or 2 years ago with the concrete asbestos sewers where we needed to get in and reline them. And we looked at those, and Stevie's trying to keep that lining project up, trying to make sure that happens. We do a good job with that, but there's just a lot to do.
There sure is.
There's a lot to do. So the equipment we're looking at would be a new backhoe, a mini excavator, and a new pickup truck.
And then those last three, which are 1/3 sewer, 2/3 highway. And the good news there is one of them is, again, that fuel island project, which will be dramatically less.
Correct. And yes. And we spoke to all those already.
Yeah. Any questions on the sewer districts? Did we, I'm trying to think, did we have any, I don't recall district extensions this?
Wow. Did we have any? Everett, can you help me out with that one? I don't think we did, but I know we have.
No.
Not in 2020, but
no.
Or there's a couple going. There's one going before the board tonight.
Yes.
Yep.
And we will have another one, 49 Collingsworth, but they're single lots.
Those
they're
are,
not.
Yeah. Those are both small. Yeah.
Yep.
Will the Collingsworth, does that tie in with the cross-border stuff we've been dealing with on the Penfield line?
That's correct. Well, this 49 will tie into that force main, and tonight we're going to be talking about an agreement with the town of Penfield.
Yeah, good. Any more questions on sewer? I mean, on sewer.
Yes, sir. Any other
questions really on anything that we have reviewed tonight? Okay, great. Thank you everybody for the presentations. I appreciate it. And Paula, thank you for pulling them all together. Thank you to everyone that pulls the logistics off. We'll look at how we can better make sure our ASL interpreting is clearly positioned, if there's something we can do to make sure that's more visible going forward. But if there are no other questions or comments or anything that any of our staff wants to present, can I have a motion to adjourn this workshop?
Hold on. I just want to remind everybody, next Wednesday at 4 o'clock, I will be sending out the documents again in a packet for you so that you'll be able to review them. And I will probably do that by the end of this week. If there's anything you need, please do not hesitate to let me know.
Thanks, Paula. If there's nothing more, again, can I have a motion to adjourn, please?
I move to adjourn.
I
Second?
Second, Christine.
Dan, can you call the roll, please?
Councilmember DeFazio,
Aye.
Councilmember Werner,
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt,
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado,
Aye.
Supervisor Manley.
Aye. Thank you all very much, and we will be back at 7 o'clock for our regularly scheduled town board meeting. See you all then. Thank you. Thank you to everybody that watched.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you to our
Thanks, everyone. Have a
interpreters.
great night.